Christians are the biggest hypocrites on the planet. So why would I want to become one? I say, good question. This is going to be a tough question today. You're right. Why would you want to become one? But I do want to point out that, yes, so many Christians, most Christians, all Christians at some times are hypocrites, but they don't have a corner on the market, right? Wouldn't you agree? Or maybe they do. Why? Because Christians profess a certain moral standard, right? They say, hey, I'm going to be Jesus or like Jesus, and then they don't. Whereas the world, everybody else just says, well, I'm doing the best I can. And because they don't announce a moral standard, therefore, when hypocrisy shows up in them, it's just not as big a flaming problem that we have, of course, with Christians. Now, here's the problem. Jesus was perfect. His followers are not. And let me just start with me, okay? I don't want to dance around it. I don't want to pretend like I'm perfect. I'm not. I like to think that I'm in process and that I'm having progress. You know what I mean? But I'm not, And Christians, we as a whole, we preach standards that we often don't keep. We say one thing, we live another. We condemn sin publicly, and then sometimes we have it operating in secret in our lives. We talk forgiveness, and yet we hold grudges like trophies. I know, it's tough. And here's the problem with all of this. People see it. That's the problem. Hypocrisy is not something that you hear about as much as you see yourself, the hypocrisy. So when people say Christians are such hypocrites, why in the world would we want to become one? I think the question is fair. But also in saying that, let me say this. Jesus hates hypocrisy more than you do. Think about that. Jesus, the one all Christians are following, hates hypocrisy more than you do. So we're going to jump into this thing. And I'm glad you've jumped on the bandwagon, the hypocrisy bandwagon, because you're in good company. Jesus is up there with you. All right. Let's just jump in and let's get a couple elephants out of the room. In, I think it was like 87, one of the greatest Christian preachers on TV, televangelists of our time. I mean, the guy was smoking good, doing great things. And all of a sudden there was immorality discovered in his life. I mean, it was a terrible thing. And then to make that worse, the hypocrisy of that, preaching Jesus and having a little girlfriend on the side when he was married, if that wasn't bad enough, then the number 2 top evangelist started pointing fingers, saying, just jumping on the bandwagon and saying, you bad guy. And then what happens? Like the very next year, not even a whole year, I don't think, it is like 10 or 11 months, he is exposed for immorality. And I mean, it was terrible. And if even, now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I can think of a third one. If that wasn't bad enough, then like the third top preacher within a year is discovered going to massage parlors. And it's just so ugly. So I get it. I get it. Understand why hypocrisy would keep you miles away from Jesus Christ. So we're going to jump in today. Black and white, hard questions are good. In fact, I'm going to answer a lot of your questions. Why are Christians such braggers? They act like they're better than everybody else. What about Jesus? What do you have to say? Well, I told you a short version a second ago. I'll give you the long version. Why are there so many scandals in the church? I mean, let's I'm going to try and help us get a grip on that. Why are Christians like counterfeit $100 bills? They talk big, but they're useless. Okay. I love it when you guys don't hold back. All right. Hard questions are good. Here's the deal. If Christianity is true, it can take scrutiny. Okay? You guys know I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus Christ with all my heart. I am definitely not perfect. And I'm also not afraid to talk about the failures. You know what I mean? There's only one who didn't fail. It was Jesus Christ. The question is, what do you do with your failures? That's the real question. What does the Christ follower do with his failures? And that's where a Christ follower can just make a mess of this entire thing. And so we're going to talk about it. And also, Christians, a lot of times when they get called a hypocrite, you know what they do? They point fingers at the person calling them a hypocrite. And I hate that. Why do I hate it? I hate it because most people that call Christians hypocrites have been burned. They have seen it. They're not making this thing up. A guy and a gal are married, and all of a sudden the husband becomes a Christian, but the wife sees him behind closed doors, and she sees a double standard. And she goes, man, this is a joke. Or maybe it's not in marriage. Maybe you see it, obviously in the church, preaching one thing, seeing another, and somebody gets burned in the church. Or friendship. You have a friend who is professing Jesus, but then all of a sudden you see him acting out the exact opposite. So you see, the challenge with hypocrisy is that people see it. It's not a made-up problem. It's something that they have experienced, and usually, sadly, they've been burned by it. So I get that. I get it. As a matter of fact, getting ready for this podcast, I asked my wife, Diane, because I just wanted a little accountability. I said, sweetie, am I a hypocrite? And immediately, she didn't even give it 2 seconds. She says, yeah, you're a hypocrite. And I looked at her like, what? Are you kidding me? What do you mean I'm a hypocrite? She says, oh my goodness, Frank, you just had a massive heart attack, which I did at the end of last year. And then you tell everybody how in the last 7 months you've lost 40 pounds and you're eating right, and you're healthy. And you're telling all these people about this weight you lost and how great you're doing. And you're sitting here in bed with me at night eating Hershey candy bars, which I am. Which I am. I am eating. I said, but why is that hypocrisy? I'm still 170 pounds. I lost the weight. She goes, Frank, you don't get it. It's not the issue that you didn't lose the weight. It's the issue is that you're telling everybody how healthy you are and you're pounding down Hershey bars. Now, in my defense, let me say, Hershey's is the best chocolate that's ever been made on the planet. You know what? I heard something the other day that I need to find out if it's true. If you know if it's true, send me an email. I heard that in European countries, when you look at the ingredients on a Hershey's candy bar on the back, it's made with chocolate and milk still over there. And if you read it here in America on the back, it's all chemicals. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I got to find out. And you know what? Even if it is true, I'm not going to throw away my Hershey's candy bar because it's the greatest chocolate on the planet. But I am going to change the way I talk about how I eat. So anyway, a little fun there. Let's get to your questions. Why are Christians such braggers? They act like they're better than everybody else. Well, you know what? To answer this, really you have to define hypocrisy. The definition of hypocrisy, it means to wear a mask. Okay? Instead of the real you, you put on this you, a fake you, a you that looks good, that's all dolled up, saying the right things, doing the right things, but it's not the real you. That's the definition of hypocrisy. It's claiming a life, claiming values, standards to live by that you don't live by. That is hypocrisy. And it usually shows up in one of two ways. It shows up where you say one thing and do another, or what I would probably consider even worse, you act morally superior to others, morally superior to others, when behind closed doors, you're doing the exact same thing they're doing. That's hypocrisy. That's wearing a mask. And excuse me, sorry about that. My nose had an itch. And we need to make a big distinction here when we're talking about hypocrisy. Failure is not the same as fraud. Okay, did you hear what I said? Think about that. Somebody's failure is not the same as fraud. Everybody fails. I fail. I've never met anybody who didn't fail except Jesus. Okay? Everybody fails. The problem is not with the failure or will people fail. The problem is when people pretend that they're not failing. That's fraud. That's at the heart of hypocrisy. And so the deal or the question is, how are you going to deal with your failure? Or how do Christians deal, or those that call themselves Christians in your environment, and you're looking at their failure, how do they deal with that? If they're struggling with an issue, then a struggle means, hey man, I'm struggling and I need help. Or whereas hypocrisy says when they struggle, I'm doing fine. They don't let you see it. They hide it from you. A struggle, when you're struggling with a problem and you fail, that leads to confession. All right? There's no problem there. But if you struggle, hypocrisy then will lead you to concealment. In other words, instead of confessing it and being honest, apologizing, asking for forgiveness if you hurt somebody, hypocrisy is when you conceal it, and so no one can see that you did it, and therefore you don't have to do anything about it. That's the hypocrisy. So the opposite of hypocrisy is not perfection, it's truth. And that's also the answer when it comes to hypocrisy. Now, I've already said it, everybody has challenges with hypocrisy. Everybody fails. Let me start myself. I'm not perfect. And for heaven's sakes, don't even begin to think that I am. Remember, I was in a crime family. I ran topless clubs, in several states. Immorality it wasn't just a sin. It was a sin of choice. It was a lifestyle. And now when I give my life to Christ and I am saved and forgiven, when the enemy or the devil wants to tempt me, he's not coming up with something new. He's recycling the old temptation. Immorality is going to be that area of my life that he's going to come after me with. And so I've got to be on my guard. But I'll tell you what, if I fail, I can't deny it. I can't hide it. I've got to confess it. I've got to be transparent about it. Otherwise, it's hypocrisy. And you see, that's why so many people will throw Jesus out with their hypocritical Christian friend or the Christian leader they're watching when they fail. It's got to come. A failure's got to come with confession. It's got to come with transparency. I used to say often, and it's still true, I'm a mess, but I'm in progress. In other words, I'm becoming more and more like Christ. Okay, next question. What about Jesus? What did he say about hypocrisy? Like I said, Jesus hates hypocrisy more than you do. Okay? He hates it. In fact, I was thinking about how to go about explaining this, because think about Jesus. He is patient, with people who are struggling. He's kind. He's forgiving. He's merciful when you sin, when you mess up. Most people don't know what mercy means. This is what mercy means. Mercy means when you mess up, you don't get what you deserve. In fact, that's a great picture of the gospel. The story of God who sent his son to die on a cross for our sin. Jesus' death on that cross was mercy. He took the punishment, so we didn't have to. Okay, so Jesus is all those good and amazing things. And I'll tell you what, when it came to hypocrisy, he was having no part of it. Now, the way I thought I'd do this is I'm going to have a little fun. I'm just going to jump into one little section of scripture. It's in one of the gospels. There's 4 gospels. That just means the story of Christ when he was on here on earth. And one of them is called Matthew. And Jesus is talking to a big crowd, and he's just letting them have it when it comes to a group of people. They were Pharisees, but they were all hypocrites. And he's calling them out, and they're standing right there in the crowd as well. So when it comes to hypocrisy, this is Jesus. These are his words, some of the things he said. Now, I'm going to blast through them because when you hear them fast, it's kind of funny about how he was just letting them have it. Matthew 23, chapter 23, verse 3. Do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. Boom. Matthew verse 5. Everything they do is done for people to see. They're hypocrites. Matthew verse 15. Woe to you, you hypocrites. I mean, he's pointing at them now. Verse 27. Woe to you, you hypocrites. You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside. Listen to this. But on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. So let's be clear about one thing. Let's be clear that your problem is not with Jesus when it comes to hypocrisy. Your problem is with Christians who are hypocrites. Okay? All right. Next question. Why are there so many scandals in the church? I am so done with it. Again, I agree. Why are they? Because I don't want to make it easy, but who wants to look like a bum? Who wants to look bad? Who wants to fail in public? Who wants to be a failure? And the challenge is with Christians, you profess this standard that you're going to live by, and it's an impossible standard without Christ. But even with Christ, we're not perfect. So I guess that makes it impossible, but we act like we are. And then we don't want to fail and we don't want to look bad. So we cover it up and we hide it, which makes it worse. And it keeps people out of the church because it makes it look like the church is full of phonies. And the church is full of sinners, which is an okay thing, as long as the sinners are confessing their sin and not pretending that they are not sinning. And so really, I would say that the church needs a big dose of honesty. Why? Because the church is where there's real help. I mean, I'll just start with my life again. When I first committed my life to Jesus Christ, man, immorality was a big thing. I struggled with it all the time and failed. I don't want to turn struggle like somehow justified or like I didn't do it. No, I struggled and failed. I can still struggle and fail. As a matter of fact, I so desperately do not want to fail. I count every single day how many days it's been since the last time that I failed. And why? Because I am desperate not to. But here's the problem with Christians and our hypocrisy. We pretend like we're perfect. It keeps people out of the church. Okay, why? Because they see the church as a fake, hypocritical church with no power and no possibility for getting help. And when I think about this, I think about it's like a Hollywood set. Better yet, it's like an emergency room, the TV show The Pit. Now, that show's not for kids. I'm not endorsing the show and saying, hey, go watch the show. But I personally enjoy the show. And I think some tremendous acting is fascinating to watch. It's rough around the edges. But here's the deal. If I broke my arm or cut off my arm, I'm not running down to the set of the pit and saying, help me. Why? Because it's a Hollywood set. They're all actors. They're not real doctors. They can't do squat. I'm going to a real emergency room, right? Where they got a bona fide doctor who knows what he's doing to sew my arm back on. You see, that's the problem when we as Christians are hypocritical instead of honest. Nobody wants to go to church, which is the real ER, where it's the only place where you can find Christ who can heal your broken life, who can heal your broken marriage, your broken family. This is where real healing is. And yet, when we let our hypocrisy get the best of us, non-believers are running from the church, not to the church. All right, fourth question. Let's get to it. Aren't Christians like a counterfeit $100 bill? Totally worthless. I gotta tell you, I love this one. It's funny when you talk about counterfeit $100 bills. Back before I gave my life to Christ, when I was in the crime family in the city I was operating at the time, they just had this crew come in and drop tens of thousands of counterfeit $100 bills all over town. And the easiest place to drop a cash $100 bill is in like nightclubs. Why? Because they deal on cash, a ton of cash. They can make change and stuff. So they came around and they warned all of us that these guys were in town and to be watching for it. So anyway, I had my little cousin visiting me there for a week, and I didn't get any counterfeit $100 bills, but I got this one bill that looked weird. And so I was teasing him, and I said he wanted to go down to the mall and buy some snorkeling gear so he could go snorkeling while he was there with me that week. And so we go down there, we're getting ready to pay for it. I said, hey, man, look, I'm going to use that counterfeit $100 bill. And he goes, no. He says, Frank, don't do it. And I said, no, it's going to be awesome. So I pay with the goofy looking bill. And she grabs it, teller, holds up the light, says, just a minute, sir. Walks over, talks to who I'm assuming is her manager. Manager looks at it, holds up the light, and walks away. And she waits a minute or two, finally comes back, and I look at her. I says, everything okay? And my little cousin is just like, a nervous wreck, like we're going to get arrested or something. She says, no, everything's okay. My manager's getting you just getting change. And then all of a sudden, with no warning, right outside the windows, all these police cars start pulling up, lights on, sirens. They run in, they grab me, they throw me on the ground, handcuff me behind my back, handcuff my little cousin, his kid, he's 18 years old, cuff him, throw him on the ground. And we spend the next 5 or 6 hours at the Secret Service explaining that I am not a counterfeiter. I'm not the guy that was dropping tens of thousands of dollars on the city of counterfeit bills. But the funniest part was my little nephew's in the other room. He's going, he did it. He told me it was a counterfeit 100. And so I had to explain the whole story. Anyway, no, I don't even know why I said that. Funny story. Anyway, let's get to the point. Hypocrisy doesn't disprove Jesus, right? Just because there is a counterfeit, that doesn't mean there isn't a real thing. As a matter of fact, it proves just the opposite. If there is a real thing, then that makes it worth what? Counterfeiting. You see, that's the whole point. But this is where people make their next mistake. They see Christians who are hypocrites or act hypocritically, and they immediately think Jesus is a hypocrite, or they reject Jesus because they say, hey, if that's the guy that follows Jesus, I don't want any part of Jesus. And for that, I want to tell you this little advice. Don't judge Jesus by the worst person who is following him, or at least the persons who is following him. You see them on their worst day. Okay? Judge Jesus by Jesus. You see, when you do that, you will not be disappointed. Why? because he is the real thing. A fake doctor doesn't mean there's no medicine. A crooked judge doesn't mean there's no justice. A counterfeit $100 bill doesn't mean there isn't a real $100 bill. So, you have every right to be disgusted when a real Christian acts like a hypocrite or does a hypocritical thing, or person calling themselves a Christian is a total hypocrite and he's not even really a Christian. Just remember, Jesus is not for hypocrisy. Jesus hates hypocrisy. Last thing I'll say, in Mark 7, he says this. He said, these hypocrites, they honor God with their lips, but their heart is far from him. He was the first one to call out a hypocrite. Okay, so what do you do with all this? 3 quick thoughts. Number 1, don't build your opinion of Jesus from his worst followers or his followers at their worst moment. Number 2, when you look at Christians, don't just look at them when they fail, look at what they do after they fail. Because if they admit their failure, confess it, repent, ask for forgiveness, admit it, that means that they're in process, that they're legitimate. Because like we talked about the church being full of sinners is not a bad thing. The church being full of hypocrites is a bad thing. But a sinner, everybody sins. We said it. Nobody was perfect except Jesus. So, again, look at them when they fail and see what they do. And the mark of real Christianity is not sinlessness, it's repentance. Finally, I want to ask you the hard question, me to you. And I'm going to do this because I had to answer this question myself. And so here's the question. Are hypocritical Christians your objection or the thing that you're so offended with, or have they become a hiding place? Because that's where I was before I gave my life to Christ. I was inundated with born-again Christians. My family all ended up becoming Christians. The girl I wanted to marry became a Christian and dumped me for Jesus. I mean, I was fed up to here with Jesus and Christians. As a matter of fact, that's why I became one, because I went out to prove the Bible was not legit and give God his comeuppance, and only to find out the Bible is historically accurate, defendable, definable, became convinced, and therefore I'm not a fool. I gave my life to Christ. But prior to that, my biggest defense was all Christians are hypocrites. I don't want anything to do with them or their Jesus. So I just ask you, as you put this podcast to rest, take a look at yourself and see if that could be keeping you from asking legitimate questions about the legitimacy of Christ. Okay, guys, that's the podcast. You know what to do. Subscribe, like, share, tell your friends, and we'll see you next time.